Most people believe being on your own is a sign of frailty. They dread it. They flee from it. But I'm here to share a truth with you. If you're a woman navigating life without a circle of friends, you're not fragile. You possess immense strength. You're occupying a territory few have the courage to inhabit. And if you hold strong to your path, the existence you craft will be more solid than anything built on superficial ties. The solitary space, a point arrives when the world around you goes quiet. No new texts, no invites, no constant buzz, only you. That specific moment can feel more crushing than any burden you've shouldered. The room might seem to shrink, the atmosphere heavier. You glance at your device by rote blank. You look once more after a few minutes, still blank. Then a deep realization strikes you, feel overlooked. It seems everyone else is advancing, chasing ambitions, immersed in their own stories. While you feel rooted in place, it's natural to think something's amiss with you, as if you're somehow flawed or lagging. Your brain, hungry for explanations, starts spinning narratives of pain, harsh tales suggesting you're inadequate, that you've stumbled, that you're unseen. In the solitary space, these narratives amplify. The quietness acts like a looking glass, reflecting every vulnerability, every apprehension you've tried to evade. And in that instant, it's easy to surrender, to accept the harshest judgments about yourself, to buckle under your own uncertainties. But listen closely, that quietness you dread so intensely is not your adversary. It's a precious offering most individuals never get. Or worse, they get it but are too fearful to unwrap it. That solitary space is an empty slate, pure and brimming with possibility. When no one is dictating who you should be, when external views aren't clouding your judgment, when the external clamor subsides, something remarkable occurs. For the very first time in ages, perhaps ever, you are in control. You step into the role of creator for your own days ahead. Every hue you pick, every action you initiate, every chance you embrace, it's entirely yours. No benchmarks to hit, no act to maintain, no crowd to win over. Just you, your aspirations, your decisions. This is the birthplace of genuine power, not in the cheers of an audience, but in the bravery required to build when there's no applause. Most individuals don't stay motionless long enough to witness this. They get anxious at the initial hush. They grab for their devices, clutter their thoughts with diversions, pursue any validation to escape the unease. But fleeing the solitary space is fleeing your own self. And you cannot construct anything authentic if you're perpetually on the run. You must remain there in the uneasy calm and confront all you've been sidestepping. You must encounter your true self, unvarnished, direct, exposed. That is the arena of change. That is how the most resilient souls are forged, not under bright lights, but in the quiet corners, not when acclaimed by admirers, but when beset by uncertainty yet still opting to trust. Because if you can flourish in the solitary space, if you can cultivate inner fortitude when nobody is looking, if you can appreciate yourself when nobody is cheering, if you can persist when nobody is encouraging you, then you will be truly formidable when attention finally swings back your way. The reality is, many are only as impactful as the notice they garner. But when you've been shaped in quietness, when your value has been meticulously assembled in isolation, you don't merely get by. When the observers depart, you excel. You cease to hunt for approval, you become its source. You cease to plead for a spot, you design your own platform. You cease to dread being by yourself, you embrace it, knowing the solitary space is far from empty. It's teeming with what could be. Yes, the solitary space feels isolating initially, it feels like a penalty, it feels unjust. But linger a bit more, abide in the unease. Experience its intensity without trying to bolt. Because past that initial surge of apprehension, something amazing awaits, a version of you that is more resilient, more insightful, more commanding than you ever conceived, a self that no longer relies on clamor to feel vibrant, a self that doesn't fall apart when focus wanes, a self that designs, ascends irrespective of onlookers. So the next occasion you find yourself in that quietness, when the invites cease, when the texts dwindle, when the external clamor fades, don't hastily try to replace it. Don't flee, don't desensitize, remain. Remain long enough to hear your own pulse again. Remain long enough to recall who you were before society dictated your identity. Remain long enough to take up your instrument and begin composing your epic, note by note, through error, through authenticity. Because the solitary space isn't where you misplace yourself. It's where you ultimately discover yourself. And when you grasp that, you'll see you were never forsaken. You were being cultivated. The clamor they seek, most individuals are unnerved by quietness because they are unnerved by their own inner worlds. They will do almost anything to sidestep it. They immerse their existence in clamor, talk about others who hold no significance, continuous celebrations that merge into one, diversions that erode their precious moments like decay. They pursue loudness, believing that if their environment remains sufficiently active, Perhaps, just perhaps, they won't need to acknowledge the inquiries they're too apprehensive to address. They dash towards disruption as if it were a sanctuary, but in their core, they understand it's merely a defense, because quietness removes the defenses. It reveals what's genuine, and for many, what's genuine is too burdensome to bear solo. When you lack companions, lack engagements, lack superficial grins to conceal yourself, you're compelled to face what is authentic. You stand before the single individual you cannot deceive, your own self. Not the refined image you display outwardly, not the diluted persona you adopt to belong, but the unrefined, pristine, stubbornly truthful version of you. The version that recognizes your true desires. The version that recollects the ambitions you forsook for acceptance. The version that yearns for substance while your external reality chases validation. And it isn't pleasant. It's disordered. It's stark. It's frightening. But it's also where all authenticity originates. The clamor they seek is an opiate, a method to remain desensitized, a strategy to postpone the inevitable self-assessment. Because being with yourself in quietness necessitates responses. Who are you minus the digital affirmations, the messages, the invites? What principles do you uphold when no one is present to applaud you? What are your genuine convictions when you're not striving to fit in? Most cannot bear the gravity of such inquiries. They prefer remaining occupied over remaining authentic. They prefer saturating the atmosphere with trivial chatter over enriching their spirit with challenging truths. But if you possess enough courage, you'll perceive the prospect concealed in the quietness. You'll recognize that every silent instant is an opportunity to reconstruct, to remold, to ascend. When the clamor diminishes, when the pretenses fall, when the superficial crowds vanish, you face a decision. You can either become alarmed and hurry back to the commotion, or you can remain with the unease, remain with the void, remain with the inquiries. Because remaining signifies confronting all you've been evading, and confronting it signifies ultimate liberation. You'll come to see that most associations you believed essential were never about genuine bonds, they were about diversion. Most festivities you thought you relished were never about delight, they were about eluding yourself. Most dialogues you clung to were never about development, they were about maintaining enough activity to ignore your own uncertainties. Once you discern the truth behind the clamor, you can never fail to see it again. You'll begin to desire quietness as others desire notice. You'll begin to prioritize substance over diversion, intent over acclaim, aloneness over fleeting approval. And here lies the irony: the very instant you cease to require the clamor, you transform into someone people are drawn towards, because genuineness is uncommon. Authenticity is compelling. While they scurry in patterns attempting to discover themselves via others, you'll already be present, steadfast, secure, unyielding. You'll cease to compromise to gain invitations. You'll cease to diminish yourself to gain acceptance. You'll cease to alter your true self merely to evade aloneness. You'll mature into someone who doesn't just endure the quietness, you'll command it. The world doesn't require more clamor. It requires more individuals who can enter a busy space and remain composed. It requires more individuals who can be alone with their inner dialogue and not disintegrate. It requires more individuals who are at ease being perceived as distinct, misconstrued, even forgotten, because they comprehend their identity beyond the outward shows. Quietness isn't your adversary. Aloneness isn't your penalty. They are your mentors. They eliminate the superfluous. They dismantle the deceptions. They bring you into direct contact with the sole individual who can alter your existence, you. And when you ultimately sit with yourself, no diversions, no pretenses, no clamor, you grasp that the very thing you were evading all that time was never the quietness. It was your own potential awaiting its release. The reflection of solitude. Solitude is not a penalty, it is a looking glass, and it's among the most truthful reflections you will ever encounter. It eliminates the clamor, the diversions, the cheering, the reassuring affirmations from other people. It leaves you exposed with no platform, no illumination, no onlookers to draw energy from. It is simply you, your inner dialogue, your apprehensions, your ambitions, your uncertainties. Solitude reveals precisely your true nature. When no one is observing, when there's no one to gain favor with, no one to cheer your endeavors, no one to confirm your being, it presents an image of the self you can no longer evade. And in that image, you will perceive everything: the resilience you forgot you possessed, the apprehensions you never truly overcame, the vulnerabilities you concealed deeply, the ambitions you once deemed unattainable. Solitude doesn't embellish, it doesn't commend you, it doesn't rationalize for you, it merely reveals what is genuine, and that is precisely where change commences. Development never occurs amidst the many. Development never occurs when you're perpetually enveloped by validation and cheers. Indeed, the many often hinder development because they provide just enough ease to remain unchanged. Genuine change occurs in the untamed spaces, in the quietness, in the calm, in the territories where nobody else ventures. It occurs when you are compelled to sit with your personal demons, your personal frailties, your own untapped capabilities, when there is no one remaining to hold responsible, when there are no diversions remaining to conceal yourself, when the justifications you once relied upon seem empty even to your own perception. That's when you face the unvarnished truth of your current self and your potential self. Most individuals dread solitude because they dread what they'll discern in that looking glass. They dread finding out they're not as resilient as they presented, that they've been pursuing someone else's idea of achievement, that their self-assurance was derived from the views of others. But if you can abide with the unease, if you can fight the desire to desensitize it, flee from it, overwhelm it, you'll discover something invaluable. You'll discover the foundations of genuine resilience, genuine insight, genuine intent. You'll discover the fragments of yourself that were concealed beneath layers of societal expectation and clamor. You'll grasp that everything you ever required was never external, amidst the many. It was always contained within you, awaiting the quietness to liberate it. Solitude is not a misfortune, it's an invitation. It's the cosmos drawing you apart, away from the clamor, away from the diversions, for a starkly truthful dialogue with your essence. It inquires of you, who are you when no one is observing? What convictions do you hold when there's no one to applaud you? What principles do you uphold when standing solo is the sole alternative? These are not comfortable inquiries. They don't yield simple responses, but they form the bedrock of genuine power. Because when you arise from solitude, when you've contended with your apprehensions, when you've confronted your uncertainties, when you've gazed into that looking glass and remained steadfast, you return more formidable. Not superficially strong, not notice me strong, but quietly strong, unyieldingly strong, the sort of resilience that doesn't require observation to be authentic, the sort that can stand solo without excuse, the sort that doesn't disintegrate the instant cheers diminish. So the next occasion existence draws you into solitude, into the quiet, into the calm, into the aspects of yourself you've been sidestepping. Don't perceive it as a penalty, perceive it as refinement. Perceive it as a hallowed zone where your authentic self can ultimately emerge. Perceive it as the crucible where your future is shaped. Because the most resilient, most formidable versions of ourselves are not created when we're enveloped by onlookers. They are created when we stand solo in the untamed spaces and opt to continue moving forward regardless, cultivating unyielding strength, without companions to count on, without a gallery of supporters to elevate you. When you falter, something extraordinary unfolds. You are compelled to become your own rescuer. Initially it seems harsh, it seems like desertion, it seems like the universe has overlooked you, but concealed beneath that aloneness is an offering most individuals will never get. You transform into the one who raises yourself after a stumble. You transform into the solace you seek, the support that pulls you upright, the inner voice that urges, persist, even when no one else perceives it. You become your own flame in the biting cold, your own stability in the tempest, your own illumination when all around you fades. In the lack of an audience, you learn to be self-sufficient. You cease to rely on borrowed resilience. You cease to delegate your sense of value to individuals who could never genuinely comprehend your struggles. You discover what it signifies to stand solidly on your own, to heed your personal intuition, to honor your personal path without requiring onlookers. The quietness imparts lessons that cheers never could. It compels you to encounter yourself at your most vulnerable and still cherish yourself. It compels you to persist onward even when no one is observing, even when no one is applauding, even when no one is extending support. And in that demanding, exquisite journey, you cultivate a type of self-esteem that no one can confiscate. You cease to compromise for acceptance. You cease to diminish for validation. You cease awaiting authorization to be content with who you are. Self-motivated, self-reliant, self-respecting. That is what you evolve into when the world becomes still. You grasp that approval, that intense desire for someone to affirm your adequacy was always a deception. It was always a mirage. Your value was never intended to be a collaborative endeavor. It was never meant to be so delicate as to be given to you, only to be reclaimed when someone's opinion shifted. It was never meant to be decided by a crowd unfamiliar with your true essence. Your value was established the moment you came into being. It was embedded within you, steadfast, clear, unaffected by the views of others. Most individuals spend their existence attempting to mend their vulnerabilities with external validation. They pursue digital affirmations, commendations, and superficial associations, hoping the clamor will occupy the emptiness within. But it never does, because genuine resilience, genuine self-assurance, genuine tranquility cannot be bestowed upon you. It must be constructed internally. It must be achieved in the solitary moments, in the unseen struggles, in the instances when surrender would be simple, but you opt not to. You opt to champion yourself, not due to onlookers, not due to rewards, but because you ultimately resolve that you are worthy of championing. And when that transformation occurs, when you no longer require anyone's endorsement to feel content, when you no longer pursue cheers to feel vibrant, when you no longer desire the nods and grins and handshakes, you become truly formidable. You enter spaces differently. You make choices differently. You navigate existence with a quiet command that cannot be faked and cannot be unsettled. Others will sense it. They won't always comprehend it, but they'll sense it. Because resilience constructed in aloneness creates an impression the world cannot disregard. So if you find yourself solitary, reconstructing yourself from scratch, don't feel bitterness, welcome it, engage with it. Because while others are occupied pursuing validation, you're occupied constructing something they can never confiscate, unyielding strength. And one day, when the clamor resumes, when the crowd reassembles, when the invites begin to reappear, you won't require any of it to stand with dignity. You'll already be certain of who you are, and that sort of resilience that endures, opting for substance over mere presence. Numerous women encircle themselves with many acquaintances, creating social networks so extensive and active that externally it appears they are profoundly cherished, completely bolstered, and perpetually linked. But outward shows can deceive, because when genuine tempests arrive, when existence is fractured by bereavement, disloyalty, emotional pain, or setbacks, they discover they are profoundly alone. Those numerous acquaintances are absent. The device that once buzzed with continuous text becomes still. The invites cease, the grins disappear. And what lingers is the vacant reverberation of connections founded on ease, not on true dedication. Superficial associations feel pleasant in the comfort of untroubled times. They offer the semblance of inclusion, of being noticed, of being appreciated. But times shift, and when difficult periods arrive, when existence necessitates something authentic, something lasting, shallow foundations cannot withstand the tempest. Genuine fellowship is distinct. Genuine linkage is uncommon. It doesn't arise from neediness, from attempting to occupy internal voids with clamor and notice. It arises from completeness, from integrity, from a position so steadfast in self-esteem, so anchored in self-value that you no longer grasp at people from an apprehension of being solitary. When you are complete within, when you have constructed an existence, a perspective, and a spirit that doesn't buckle when left solitary, you begin to attract in a new way. You cease to draw in those merely seeking to receive. You cease to engage with those who only arrive to deplete your vitality. You begin to emanate a distinct type of resilience, a quiet command that discourages the superficial and calls to the authentic. You start to encounter individuals who perceive you, genuinely perceive you, not as an add-on to their existence, not as a convenience or a means to an end, but as a warrior firm on her own territory. They observe the struggles you endured, the tempests you've weathered, the marks you bear without excuse. And they don't recoil, they don't flee, they don't lessen you to enhance their own comfort. They acknowledge your resilience because they too have navigated their own challenges. They comprehend the cost of remaining unbroken. They comprehend how scarce genuineness is in a world fixated on outward shows. Opting for substance over mere presence isn't about spurning individuals. It's about spurning anything that might compel you to diminish yourself again. It's about declining to accept lukewarm associations, feigned connections, and vacant dialogues that leave your essence unfulfilled. It's about understanding that your moments, your vitality, your spirit are invaluable and not all deserve entry to them. It's about valuing yourself sufficiently to await the kind of fellowships, the kind of bonds that don't necessitate you diluting yourself merely to be cherished. And yes, the journey to substance is more solitary initially. You will experience periods where you navigate mostly by yourself. You will have evenings when you question if genuine linkage is even achievable in a world that lauds the superficial. But maintain your course. Have faith in the journey, because what you're constructing, the substance you're infusing into your existence, will eventually become the very element that attracts spirits aligning with your own. Spirits who don't aim to exploit you. Spirits who don't aim to alter you. Spirits who simply desire to walk alongside you as peers, as warriors, as kindred flames. The reality is, it's preferable to navigate solo than to engage with individuals who fail to perceive your true self. Better to construct an existence that feels fulfilling and complete in aloneness than to deplete your vitality supporting connections that would fail the moment existence becomes challenging. Opting for substance over mere presence isn't about aloneness, it's about advancement. It's about ascending to a version of yourself so genuine, so commanding, so complete that the right individuals cannot fail to discover you. And when they appear, you won't need to grasp, you won't need to pursue, you won't need to affirm your value. They'll perceive it because it was never concealed. It was merely awaiting someone resilient enough to acknowledge it, confronting the urge to compromise. There will be instances when aloneness feels like a burdensome garment you cannot shed, instances when it adheres to you, penetrates your core, and renders every moment more protracted, more frigid, more oppressive. There will be nights when the quietness enveloping you seems too deafening to endure, when the void in your surroundings reverberates with every uncertainty you've ever attempted to suppress. In such moments, it grows appealing to grasp for anything, anyone, merely to feel less solitary. You will desire to relax your principles, to make concessions you vowed never to entertain, to welcome individuals into your sphere who are undeserving of your company. You will persuade yourself that any interaction is superior to none, that a present individual, even if they bring a detached spirit, is preferable to the pang of solitude. But stand firm, oppose that inclination with all your might, because aloneness is fleeting, compromise is enduring. Yielding to less than you merit just to mitigate the immediate unease will exact a greater toll than you comprehend. It will gradually diminish your spirit. It will erode your self-esteem in imperceptible ways, in minor yields that appear benign initially, but eventually leave you questioning your own identity. Compromising for superficial ties might alleviate the immediate sting of aloneness, but it aggravates a far more significant injury, the injury of betraying your own essence. Each occasion you yield to less than your spirit knows it merits, you instruct yourself that your requirements, your principles, your ambitions are subject to negotiation. And once you begin to negotiate your value, reclaiming it becomes increasingly challenging. Aloneness, irrespective of its intensity, is a phase. It arrives and departs like atmospheric conditions. But constructing an existence with individuals who don't genuinely perceive you, who don't genuinely appreciate you, who deplete your vitality and obscure your brilliance, that is a snare with lasting repercussions. It is far simpler to weather a solitary evening than to disentangle yourself from an existence pieced together with concessions you never wished to make. The discomfort of fleeting aloneness is an examination, a crucible. It poses the question: will you maintain your ground? Will you remain loyal to what you recognize you merit, even when it's painful? Will you believe that something superior is approaching, even when your inner voice screams to accept what is readily available? Uphold your principles, not from arrogance, not from inflexibility, but from a profound, unyielding esteem for the existence you are constructing. Preserve your spirit, safeguard it as the precious entity it is, because you are not present to gather individuals like accolades for a vacant display. You are not present to saturate your existence with hollow company merely to quell your apprehensions. You are present to construct something authentic, something enduring, something that aligns with your essence on a plane that cannot be faked, cannot be expedited, cannot be compelled. Genuine linkage requires time. Genuine fellowship necessitates forbearance. It requires you to navigate the wilderness of solitude without succumbing, without misplacing yourself en route. It asks you to believe tenaciously, intensely, that you are deserving of the kind of affection, the kind of fellowships, the kind of existence that don't necessitate you diminishing or compromising. So when the urge to compromise appears, and it certainly will, confront it with resilience. Confront it with the recollection of every instance you compromised and later felt regret. Confront it with the image of the existence you are constructing, the existence still awaiting you, contingent on your refusal of anything inferior. Allow aloneness to refine you, not diminish you. Allow it to make clear what you desire, not obscure it. Because the individual who maintains their ground during solitary phases is the individual who later experiences an existence abundant with significance. An existence where every bond is founded on truth, not apprehension, where every linkage reflects the esteem you first accorded yourself. And that existence, the one you are steadfastly awaiting, is worth every solitary evening it requires to construct. The change you cannot counterfeit. You cannot counterfeit self-esteem. You cannot counterfeit internal calm. You cannot counterfeit resilience. Regardless of how meticulously someone attempts to shape an image, regardless of how refined their speech or arranged their existence appears externally, authenticity acknowledges authenticity. Either you've navigated the crucible, or you haven't. Either you've sat solitary with your apprehensions, confronted them directly, and resolved not to be shattered, or you've concealed them beneath clamor, diversions, and superficial cheers. There's no simple path, no trick, no feigning your way to it. The type of change that makes others pause and notice your aura before you utter a word, it arises solely from the struggles you undertake when no one else is observing. This aloneness you experience, This ache within you, this quietness that at times feels capable of engulfing you, it's not a penalty. It's a hallowed crucible, a space where the inauthentic aspects of you are consumed, and what is genuine is fortified. Consider the earth's deep, quiet places, not unlike the unseen core of your being where true strength is forged, far from superficial landscapes. These are the inner sanctums where layers of fear, of identities that were never truly yours, are stripped away. This process invites you to reconnect with the parts of yourself designed for this profound inner work, forging a version of you that stands resilient, whole and intensely alive, as if each solitary moment charges you with a unique power. You might feel as if you are on a remote, windswept island, learning to belong to yourself without needing external validation. So don't expedite the journey. Don't flee from the quietness. Remain in that metaphorical wilderness. Stand in that refining fire. Allow it to work. Because every instant you persevere, every moment you opt not to buckle, every day you decline to compromise, you are remaking yourself into someone formidable, someone memorable, someone who doesn't merely motivate others. You stir something within them. One day, not by outward show, but by the quiet strength you cultivated alone, you will survey your existence and grasp you didn't just weather your aloneness. You were reborn by it, shaped like a rugged, beautiful coastline by the very solitude you embraced. The unseen development. The most profound transformations occur in quietness. They unfold when no one is observing. No one applauds the woman engrossed in study late at night, forgoing rest to broaden her understanding, while others dull themselves with diversions. No accolades are given to the woman who opts for rigor over ease, who declines momentary gratifications to nurture something enduring. No one cheers the woman who silently alters the inner narrative, teaching herself to perceive more clearly, to trust more deeply, to discard the apprehensions and uncertainties that once controlled her. There are no public recognitions for mending your personal injuries without making your suffering a spectacle. There are no awards for those who sit solitary in the quiet, face their inner conflicts directly, and choose self-improvement over resentment. No one observes the woman who rises before dawn to reflect, to connect spiritually. Consider the silent, powerful growth of a vast, ancient forest, an intricate ecosystem thriving largely unseen, where life burgeons in layers from the hidden floor to the sunlit canopy. This is like your inner world, where unseen battles are fought, where tiny daily choices are made to speak to yourself with kindness instead of harshness. These are the triumphs that hold the most significance, because this quiet cultivation builds an inner core that becomes unshakable amidst external noise. The woman who develops in the unobserved moments becomes a woman who cannot be easily unsettled when existence challenges her. She doesn't disintegrate under negative remarks because she no longer requires external validation for her being. She doesn't become lost in turmoil because she has already grounded herself in inner discipline. She doesn't pursue hollow bonds or empty praise, because she comprehends the richness found within, like a hidden spring in that deep forest, a source of life many will never discover because they are too focused on the surface. Most won't see the nights she wanted to surrender but persevered, the instances she questioned everything but opted to believe regardless. The world doesn't laud unseen effort, but these are the very victories that build a resilience that needs no announcement, a power that demands no recognition to be real. When you construct yourself quietly, consistently, you establish a groundwork that cannot be disturbed by views, dismissal, setbacks, or bereavement. So when your development feels unobserved, when your advancement feels imperceptible, when your endeavors seem to be overlooked, recall, the effort you invest in private is what readies you to radiate in public. The unseen development isn't futile, it's invaluable, it's distinguishing you. It's constructing something within you that clamor could never fashion. And one day, without exertion, without compulsion, without needing to declare it, you'll enter spaces with an aura so undeniable that even the most strident voices will subside. Because genuine development doesn't need to proclaim, it simply reveals itself, becoming too expansive for constrained views. Some individuals will fail to grasp you, regardless of how purposefully you act, how profoundly you exist with a spirit as clear and tranquil as undisturbed waters. They won't comprehend. If they speak ill, like whispers carried on a breeze suggesting you are somehow flawed, remember their limited understanding is not your burden to carry. You were never intended to conform to narrow confines constructed by limited perspectives. You were never meant to dilute your essence so others might feel at ease in their own lack of growth. You are here to lead an existence that resonates with your spirit, not one that satisfies superficial criteria. As you ascend, as you hone yourself, you will invariably move beyond certain associations. You will sense a growing distance between yourself and individuals you once considered close. You will discover yourself conversing less because your expressions now possess greater substance. And not everyone is prepared for that. You will observe how trivial dialogues drain you, how hollow approval no longer thrills you, how conforming feels more like restriction than inclusion. That isn't a failing, it's the natural outcome of growth, like ancient trees that have weathered countless storms, standing tall and distinct. Not everyone is destined to accompany you on your ascent. Limited perspectives will misconstrue your earnestness. They will mistake your dedication. For them to expand, they would need to acknowledge their own constraints, a task many avoid. They will misjudge your refusal to engage with superficiality as aloofness. But you comprehend the reality. You recognize the numerous silent struggles you endured merely to become this iteration of yourself. You understand the cost of cultivating a mind that doesn't buckle at the initial sign of aloneness. You know the period spent in solitude, opting for discipline over diversion, truth over ease. You owe no one a justification for the resilience you had to develop in private. Continue your journey, continue your ascent, continue progressing with the same deliberate, grounded actions that brought you to this point. Not everyone merits a prime position to witness your path. Not everyone is equipped to be part of the subsequent phases of your existence. Entry to your sphere should be determined by integrity, not mere acquaintance. Adherence to your former self is an insufficient motive to remain connected to individuals who resist development. You are permitted to move beyond those who opt to remain constrained, and when they pass judgment, when they engage in gossip, when they remark that you've altered, acknowledge it with grace. Allow them their discourse. Allow them their misinterpretations. Allow them to remain in the situations you refuse to stagnate in, because while they are engrossed in analyzing your existence, you are engrossed in constructing it. While they adhere to past versions of you, you are advancing into new territories they cannot even fathom. You are not unfeeling, you are lucid. You are not detached, you are perceptive. You are not overly solemn, you are too dedicated to squander your vitality on what fails to support your higher purpose. Grand ambitions necessitate a grand spirit, and grand spirits will invariably seem too substantial for constrained views. So safeguard your vitality, preserve your tranquility, and never express regret for developing in a manner that requires more of you, even if it entails developing in solitude for a period. You're not here to be comprehended by all. You're here to lead an existence that only a select few will even acknowledge, and fewer still will truly grasp its inherent freedom. The strength of navigating solo. In the profound quietness of being alone, a certain strength emerges from the understanding that you can navigate solo. It's a serene, almost imperceptible strength, like the quiet majesty of untouched natural wonders, those hidden sanctuaries on our planet. This doesn't imply you shun others, or that you are entirely self-sufficient in a way that rejects connection. It simply signifies you are not fearful of your own company. It means that when the usual company disperses, when companionships alter, when your journey narrows to where only your own presence is felt, you don't become distressed. You don't frantically seek any available company merely to feel less isolated. Imagine yourself in a vast, peaceful wilderness, where your own inner compass is your most trusted guide. You rely on your own discernment. You rely on your own spirit. You trust the existence you are crafting, even when no one else perceives its form. When you can navigate solo, it transforms your entire approach to life. It signifies that when you opt to be alongside another, whether in fellowship, alliance, or affection, it stems from a position of resilience, not apprehension. You are not grasping because you're unnerved by being solitary. You are not pleading because you believe you require another to make you whole. You are not diminishing yourself just to conform to an existence that doesn't resonate with your true self. You are selecting with liberty, with command, with awareness. You are declaring, I can thrive independently. I am complete independently, but I opt to share this experience with you because I desire to, not because I am compelled to. This shift from need to choice, from desperation to liberty, alters the entire feel of your connections. It brings a kind of deep peace, knowing you don't require anyone to affirm your inherent power or magnificence. You don't need continuous reassurance. You don't need to be supported when the path becomes arduous, because you've already mastered navigating yourself through more challenging terrains than this. You cease pursuing individuals who don't appreciate you. You cease compromising to remain included. You cease shaping yourself into personas that others find more palatable. Instead, you become firmly established, unyieldingly, in your identity, in your convictions, and in your direction. You begin to acknowledge that anyone who journeys with you is an enrichment, not a requirement, a preference, not a support system. And the remarkable aspect of navigating solo is that it hones your perception. It dispels the haze of diversions. It attunes your spirit to a resonance that cannot be feigned. you start to discern clearly who merits a place in your existence and who was merely occupying a void. You no longer settle for minimal efforts. You no longer abide disloyalty. You no longer squander your vitality on what doesn't nurture your core, like cultivating a precious, unique garden that requires careful tending. Others will sense this profound self-possession, this inherent strength. They will feel the freedom in how you engage, openly, without fear, without reservation. Because nothing is more compelling, nothing more attractive than an individual who is truly whole on their own. So if you find yourself navigating solo currently, persist. If you are in periods where no one appears to comprehend your path, trust your journey, like trusting the ancient, steadfast mountains. Society often conditions us to dread aloneness, but those quiet, solitary spaces are where you discover your most resilient self. They offer a retreat, a place to reconnect and find clarity, choosing companionship from a place of fullness, not from a sense of lack. You are crafting an inheritance, even if it seems imperceptible at this moment. Each instance you opt for self-esteem over fleeting approval, each instance you heed your spirit's summons over the world's clamor, each instance you select solitude over superficial company, you are creating a path. These path markers don't just indicate your journey. They illuminate the way for those who will follow. You are demonstrating to succeeding generations what it signifies to stand with dignity without requiring a multitude for support. You are instructing without lecturing, guiding without commanding, motivating without display. You are affirming, quietly yet undeniably, that a woman's significance is not gauged by the quantity of individuals she can attract, but by the substance, the rigor, the unyielding resilience she cultivates within. And be assured the world observes, even when it feigns indifference. The young woman who feels alienated because she declines to dilute her essence, she is observing you. The woman who has been informed she is excessive, too driven, she is observing you. The spirits who are silently yearning for endorsement to exist completely, to stand resolutely, to navigate courageously without excuse. They are all observing. They may not articulate it, but your bravery silently grants them leave to ascend. Your model conveys to them that it's not merely achievable, it is vital. In a world that often rewards superficiality, your refusal to compromise, choosing your essence over acclaim, your development over ease, your principles over your aloneness, these are not insignificant choices. They are like the enduring, life-sustaining meadows, foundational elements of an unyielding inheritance, one that will persist beyond fleeting fashions and hollow views, offering sanctuary and inspiration. Because a woman who commands solitude is a woman who commands all aspects of her life. She is invulnerable in her integrity. She is formidable in her endeavors. She is unparalleled in her genuineness. She doesn't enter spaces hoping for selection. She enters already self-selected. She doesn't diminish herself for acceptance. She stands in her complete presence, whether it discomfits others or not. She doesn't grasp at connections from apprehension. She cultivates them from abundance, from truth, from completeness. Every firm limit you establish, every high principle you uphold, every solitary evening you weather with composure instead of neediness, they are not solely about you. They are elements in a far grander design. They are strands in a narrative that proclaims, a woman's value was never intended for negotiation. A woman's spirit was never intended to be exchanged for inclusion. A woman's command was never meant to rely on another's endorsement. Your inheritance is not something you casually encounter. It is something you are actively shaping presently, with every decision to ascend rather than yield, to navigate rather than grasp, to stand rather than plead. Persist. Because one day, when another woman confronts her personal wilderness and feels she cannot continue, she will discover your path markers. And because of you, she will find her own way forward.